Hey there, it's Kim Marie, and it is Saturday, and I just want to ask you a question. Did you notice how quickly life is flying by? Yesterday, I was working on my book, and a friend who I haven't seen in several months came back to town and said, "Let's get together." I was so excited. I was like, "Yeah, definitely." Well, we can either do it Friday or Saturday. Thinking yesterday was Thursday, I said, "I have an appointment until 4. I can do it after that on Friday." And she said, "Today's Friday." And I was like, oh my gosh, like time is flying by. I watched a movie that I love, Bridesmaids, and the other night, and I was looking at, you just think like that movie came out not that long ago. That movie and The Heat, another great movie. You can watch them over and over and over again. I've seen them so many times. But did you know that Bridesmaids came out in 2011? That's 11 years ago. 11 years that went like that when I just think about it. And The Heat came out in 2013. So a story that I think about when I see how quickly time flies is one time I was doing a group mentorship, and one of the guys in the group said, "Well, I figure I have about 8 years left to live." And I was just like, I mean, the whole room just gasped, like, what? 8 years? Like, where would you get that? The guy at the time was 50 years old. I'm 55 right now. And I was just like, "Why would you say that?" And he said, "Well, I look at my family line and I look at the men in my family and how long they lived. And it's approximately I have until I'm about 58 years old." I mean, that just puts things in perspective when you think about Bridesmaids coming out yesterday or The Heat coming out like so. And then you think, where did that time go? What did I do in that time? Many of you know that I lost both of my parents at the beginning of 2021, and several months before I had left my home in North Carolina and went and took care of them. Went through, the whole process with them. But one of the things was to go through their stuff and see what they wanted and didn't want. And I was going through my dad's closet, and he had things like this crystal, this gorgeous crystal that was in a box all the way in the back of his closet. And he had some Japanese throwing knives, or Chinese maybe. And they had never been used, that never been taken out of the box, and he had them for who knows how long. And I said, "Well," he said, "isn't this beautiful?" I was like, "Yes, I really love it." And he said, "Well," and I said, "Why is it all the way in the back in your closet?" He said, "Well, I don't want anything to happen to it." But in the meantime, he never displayed it ever. And those throwing knives were still in the box. They had never been used. He had probably had them for decades and never actually went out. He thought it would be fun one day to go out and throw the knives. And that just breaks my heart, because we do that not only with our stuff, we do that with our gifts, with the things that we have inside of us that are meant to be shared. I do these videos not because I think I'm perfect or I think I'm better or I think I know more than anybody, but there are things that I have learned and gathered through the years that can inspire people. And I think that's really important to me. And I think speaking to the heart is something that I do well, because I do. I feel that I care, and I'm really good at seeing the bigger picture. I don't know. I am here to share, to inspire, to trip in front of you, so that you know that even if you trip, you still have a good message to share, or you still have gifts that to offer. There are things that each one of us have that make us who we are, that make us unique. And we have this small amount of time to share it in this human existence. And that time is going by. So that's what makes me say, who cares? Who cares if I didn't practice this? Who cares if I don't know exactly what I'm going to say when I turn on that video? Maybe something I say will flicker something in someone enough so that they can move forward. And then in turn, that always makes me move forward because I'm feeling purposeful. So I feel like there has to be a balance in what we do. We can't always give. A lot of times we give and we never allow receiving. So do you block yourself from receiving? And then do you feel depleted? Do you feel like the angry giver? How do you block yourself? Do you think that you have to put it all on your shoulders and that if you ask for help or you receive help that you're going to owe somebody something, right? Or if someone gives you a compliment, do you immediately water it down or swat it away with the big proverbial tennis racket? You know, this is ways that we block ourselves. So how do we replenish ourselves? How do we share our gifts without attachment? Without, you know, like I said, if one person gets inspired, I'm happy. I'm not asking you for anything. Yes, I would love to continue to build a presence and help people, but that's the goal, right? I'm not asking for anything. So it's giving without an attachment, but it's receiving in the same way, because when you give without attachment, it's easier to receive if you allow yourself without attachment, realizing that, you know, the law of reciprocation, just you're in the flow. You have to give to receive. You have to give to receive and you have to receive to give. You have to stay in the flow. It's like when people hoard their money or they hoard their things and they're blocking the flow of anything coming through them. So it's in staying in the flow. It's in investing. That's why it's important if you're receiving a service that you're giving something, you're giving an energy exchange. And it's in that investment and it's in that faith and that trust that it will return to you. And it does. It does. Even when we're scraping at the bottom and we don't know where the next thing is going to come in, it always does. I remember my first investment property. I had wanted to do real estate investing, even though I've always done this work as well. And I had a little bit of money that I could invest once I sold my house. So my both children graduated. I sold my house so that I had this little bit of money and I could invest, and I was renting. And when that money went quickly, right? And then I had money on credit cards that I used to renovate this house. I knew I only had a certain amount of time to renovate the house. I did it for 15 to 18 hours a day, every day. And I knew I had to get it back on the market before the fall came, where it starts to slow down, right? Especially several years ago. Now the market's crazy. But I had to take a huge leap of faith because it was on the market and it was, yes, I did get it back up for sale, but I literally didn't even have the money to pay my next month's bills. That's how tight I had it. And it worked out. It worked out. I sold it in time. I did all of it works out. So giving yourself, when you feel prompted to do something, I'm not saying go off and just throw your money away and start spending it here and there, but when you get inspired and you get prompted, trust that you will be shown. But you got to plug into that energy. You got to plug in to the inner guidance that we have. We have to plug into the next right things. You have to slow down and not start panicking. Just start trusting that if you're being inspired and you're being brought to share this part of yourself, if you're brought to it, you'll be brought through it, but you got to allow yourself to be brought through it. So allowing yourself to be brought through it is like trusting a GPS, right? You plug in the address and you say, okay, I want to go 2,000 miles away. You plug it in and you trust it. And then what does it do? It tells you go 500 feet, make a left. So you go 500 feet, you make a left, and then you get the next direction. That's the same as plugging into your higher self, to plugging into your inner guidance. like I said, when you get inspired, when you get red flags, when you get gut feelings, that's all your guidance trying to lead you. We get to decide what we want to do, how we want to do it. But what I want to say is that time is ticking by. Time is ticking by. I know when my dad was passing away, in that time when he was sick, he didn't want to go. He was not ready. There were things he did not do. And he didn't even know that the impact that he did have on the people that he did have. You know, just being himself. He did not know that he was such a great mentor for so many people. And so I literally called anybody and everybody I could that, you know, once I knew he was in hospice, and allowed them to connect. And they told him how much of an impact that he had on them. And my mom as well. And, you know, people can forget. And we can forget. We can forget the best part of ourselves when we get caught up in it. But that best part of you has to be shared. You know, definitely in these last 2 years, I went through a spiral of losing my parents, then my friend, and then my dogs, and moving, and not having my home, and just all these things. You can start to forget. You start to forget that you can make an impact on anyone. But you can. You can. And it is so important that you do. That's why you're here. In this time, that's why you're here. You are part of the tapestry. What you bring matters. So share it with the world. Tell me what you think. Give me some comments. Please post any of my videos if they speak to you. And you have an amazing day. Mwah.